Hello and welcome. Welcome to the podcast. I really appreciate you being here. I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan, your host. I'm a career and life coach for women, and I am thrilled to say that we're putting a wrap on season 5 today. This podcast journey for me has been amazing and enlightening, and I it's because I've gotten to chat with some wonderful women who share brilliant insights because they have a heart to help other women. And that just fills me with joy. And I love to be a part of that. Through this podcast, we get to introduce you to role models and experts and new resources to help you explore different career transition approaches and indeed life transition approaches as well, new practices and tips. I am really passionate about being a conduit for sharing those things with you. And we'll continue to do that through season 6 that we'll launch in the next week or so. So you can create a life and career that fulfills you. Because you know what? You don't deserve to stay stuck where you don't belong. So, as always, if something strikes a chord and you want more information as we're having this conversation, check out the show notes for ways to connect with us, subscribe, follow us, and leave a comment if something resonates with you. We love to hear from you. So, I always start with a question, or very often I do. What happens when you set a really big career goal? You make all the sacrifices to finally achieve it. And you stop and take stock, and something feels like it's missing. You maybe feel unfulfilled or dissatisfied, and you might be wondering why. My guest, Randi Roberts, has been there, and we're going to explore the question, now what? Randi and I share very similar backgrounds. She's had a very successful 30-year plus career as a pharmaceutical executive, working for both large companies and small startups. And she founded 2 businesses. Randi is president of Corlin Roberts Coaching and founder of the Fulfilling Career Happy Life Community. I love the name of that. As a certified executive and career life coach, Randi skillfully combines her broad leadership experience with deep coaching skills to help her clients love their work as they achieve their goals. So, if you're wondering why you feel maybe a little disappointed after a career of hard work, let's dig into the question, now what? Welcome, Randi. I'm so happy you're here.
Thanks, Maria. I really appreciate you inviting me. I'm looking forward to the conversation. It's one of my favorite topics.
I know that you and I spend our time working with women who struggle with their careers, but usually we talk with clients about the challenges or problems they're facing within their careers. But let's talk now about why achieving your biggest career goal could be a problem. What do you think about that?
Well, first, it's a good problem to have. It's what's really interesting is many things, even the best things that we accomplish, have a flip side to them. And what I find is, most of my clients are accomplished, but they have more that they want to do. And they're considering, what does that mean? And will it really be fulfilling? And I think some of this comes from my own experience of having achieved what was the big career goal that I worked towards for 20 years. And when I got there, it wasn't exactly what I expected. It was wonderful in many ways, but it wasn't. I think in some ways I had thought more about getting to the goal than what it would be like to be there. And I think there are some things
Mm.
that I could have thought about and worked on to make that experience I don't want to say better because it was so good in so many ways, but smoother, smoother.
Mm. So, would you dig into that with us a little bit? Pull the curtain back a little bit, give us some background.
Of
What
course.
is your experience with achieving your biggest goal? Tell us a little more about that.
Yeah. You mentioned that my first career was in pharmaceuticals, and I was always on the commercial side, started as a sales representative and worked my way up through sales and marketing type jobs. I identified early on that I wanted to lead both functions. I wanted to lead what in pharma is known as a franchise in most companies. So to have both the sales and marketing groups together, because I saw a lot of misses between those two groups. If you use the analogy of running a relay, it's the passing of the baton that can be an issue. And I felt like that was a place where I could make a real difference. So I worked toward that goal, as I said, for probably 20 years, really with an eye towards that. Um, and I am a very goal motivated person. When it comes to something small of what do I want to achieve today, or something big, what's the focus for my career? That's really motivating to me. So getting there was amazing. Um, and what I didn't realize was how important that goal was for me personally in terms of motivation. And so once I had achieved the goal, I didn't have the goal. And it left a gap that I didn't anticipate. And it took me a little while to figure out what it was that was different. I felt as though I had lost a little bit of my motivation, a little bit of what had made me so successful. And, I think you may find this yourself, Maria, but I think a lot of coaches, when we choose our area of focus, we choose what we know, we choose what we're passionate about. And so I feel fortunate to be able to help other people through that kind of an experience, anticipating what it will be like when they achieve that goal and really finding it as fulfilling and as satisfying as they hope that it will be.
Yeah, I think you're so right. That those of us who coach and teach, we teach what we know, right? And that makes the best teacher, the best coach, I think. Um, but how did you recognize? So you went for the brass ring, you got the brass ring, and now you're holding on to it, and it's like the question, like we posed early, now what? How did you recognize the problem? How did you dig into that to recognize that you had the ring, but there was no new goal for you? How
Right.
did you recognize that?
Well, it took a little while for me to figure it out because when you first get that new big job, it's at once thrilling and intimidating. So it took me a little while, I think, to catch my breath from that and then realize, you kind of get um, this itch that you have to figure out what's the cause of it. But I think in order to really um, set the framework for how did I figure it out and what did I do with it, and now what I guide clients to is to sort of take a step up and think about what's the thread through my career that was really motivating to me. And for me, it always has been about doing some good while I'm doing well. And both of those things are important to me. The doing well part, I need to provide for my family. I have a mark from my family of origin in terms of a need for security. So that piece of it's really important. But the doing good piece while I'm doing that is always critical. And the interesting thing is that has looked different and been satisfied in different ways at different times of my life. When I was first out of college, I majored in sociology. I thought I was going to be a marriage and family counselor and help people in that way. Things took a little bit of different turn and I ended up in the business world. And the reason that I loved pharmaceuticals so much was because the industry exists to make people's lives better, to improve their health, to improve their lives. And so that really felt like home to me for a long time because I was in touch with the good that we did. So, fast forward a little bit, as I mentioned, it looks different at different times in your career, different times in your life. And I think sometimes when there's a gap, it's important to take a step back and think about what does that mean? What and for me that's doing good while I'm doing well. For other people it's some other, theme, guiding principle, whatever you like to call it. But it's important to think about what is that and how is that satisfied at this phase of your life. When you set the original goal, I worked towards that goal for 20 years. I took a lot of different jobs in order to get there. I was with different companies in order to get there. And I changed a lot during that time. When I first started out, I was, single, moved across country for my job because it seemed like a good idea. Then you get into the next phase of your life. You have more responsibility. It might be a mortgage, it might be young kids at home. Different things are important at different phases. And what helped me and what I love to work on with clients is taking a pause, taking a step back and thinking about what is it at this phase of your life? What is satisfying that need that you have in that way? Because when you find that you're in a situation that either isn't as satisfying or just doesn't feel as motivating, just doesn't feel as right, it may be because the goal doesn't fit anymore. It doesn't necessarily fit who you are. So it's good to
Mm.
take a step back and think about what does that mean. I don't know if this is something you can relate to in yourself or in your clients.
Oh my, absolutely. I call it the power of the pause. It really takes uh, that stepping back, as you say, and taking kind of an objective view of where you are, how you got here, what's not fitting quite right anymore, and why. And I love what you said. Stop and figure out what was that golden thread that wove throughout your career, that motivated you, that kept you feeling doing good for in your case, or doing what you felt was your calling, your purpose.
Exactly. And
Understanding what that is and perhaps why it's no longer there for you, and what does it mean now, right? And what can you do about it? So, what did you do about it once you discovered that it wasn't what you wanted anymore?
yeah, it's interesting. It wasn't so much that it wasn't what I wanted. What I didn't realize was the lack of that goal. I had achieved the goal. The lack of the goal cost me a little bit in motivation. I was where I wanted to be, but I had never experienced a time where I didn't, the next step is this, here's what I'm working towards. So once I realized that that was missing for me and it was costing me something in motivation, I was at the highest level of responsibility I had ever had. I wasn't looking to move through the job quickly. So I had to reset my goals of what did I want to achieve in the job? What did I want to do for the business, for the people in my organization? I had a few hundred people reporting to me. And what I did was I focused on not just delivering for the business, but really digging in and enhancing the career development, the career satisfaction for the people that were in my organization. And that was really important to me. I really focused the one on one and identifying the folks that could most use my help, my mentorship to get to the next level. And that
That's another way of
reset.
doing good.
Exactly. Finding the way that meant that I could express that during that phase made a huge difference. It made a difference for me and it made a difference for them. A lot of those people are still in my life in some way.
I love that. There are such common threads between your background and my background. It's no wonder that we clicked when we first met. And I'm so happy that you're here to share your story. But the reason I'm in coaching today is because I spent considerable time in my 20-year career with IBM, and even in my corporate career prior to that, coaching and mentoring mostly women in their careers, in their career development, in their, planning ahead, setting goals, figuring out how to achieve them. So that when my corporate career ended, not by my hand, um, I had a choice to make about what now, right? Or now what? Yeah. And I realized how much I loved that part, which was not my job, was not what I was paid to do, but it was what I loved most.
Yeah.
So it was a natural for me then to leave the corporate world and now help corporate women through their careers.
It's interesting. We haven't talked about this piece, but this is another way that our paths are similar. Because when I left corporate, um, it was time for me to change companies for a lot of reasons. But I didn't go back into corporate. And I say also not by my hand. I have some chronic health issues that I deal with,
Mhm.
and it was time to pay attention to them and not travel so much and not work so many hours and that kind of thing. And so I had to do some self exploration. I knew I wasn't done. I had more to contribute, I had more to do.
Yeah.
I love the business world. So I didn't want to walk away from my leadership experience. And so what I view now is that I've taken all of that business leadership and I sort of have pivoted on it. And now the good that I do is helping other people achieve their goals.
Yeah.
And it is so satisfying.
It is. It is. And thank you for doing that, because it's people like you who are role models for others. And role models are desperately needed in this new corporate world, right? This post pandemic, I hope post pandemic world. And there are a lot of women, especially, they're my passion is to help women who just need more role models, need to understand, what leadership really is all about, and how to do it successfully, and how to set goals and achieve them. And if they're not feeling like a good fit, how to shift and take another crack at it.
Yeah.
And it's okay to do all of that.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I think one of the things that sometimes is hard is you've achieved this big thing and others are, you know, impressed by it, say, and
Yeah.
congratulatory and all of that. And in some ways, one of the first steps is to give yourself permission to feel how you feel,
Yeah.
whether it's intimidated or excited or not as engaged as you thought you would be. I find by paying attention to how you feel, how you react, it's very, very informative, really telling on what may be going on for you.
Yeah, I agree. I agree a lot. That's just so true. So how, in your experience, I know what this answer is from my experience, but in your experience working with your clients, how common is this challenge?
It is common. It's certainly not everyone, because well, many of my clients aren't there yet, if you will. They're still on their way there, and so the work that we do may be about keeping them touched, close to that golden thread, as you put it. I think it's
Mm.
a great term for it. Keeping close to who are they now, and is that still the right goal, and preparing for what it will be like to be there. So I'm
Yeah,
curious what your answer is.
yeah. So very similar to yours. So what I find is that so often the big goals are not ours. They were set some time ago based on somebody else's expectation of us. And we have strived for that for a very long time. And when we are nearing that place or somewhere along the path, something just does not feel right. And we wonder why, because we've worked so long and hard. We went to college, we got our degrees, we got an advanced degree, whatever that path is. And now you're a doctor or an attorney or an executive in business. You've got your MBA and you just don't love it. Those are the that's what I find common. And those are the clients that I love to help, because figuring out who you are now, what you really care about most now, and what your vision is for what you want next, that's the process, if you will, that we have to go through to figure out what do we do about it.
Yeah, that's absolutely it. I talk to clients about that pretty frequently. Um, a couple of thoughts about it
Mm.
is, yes, we get the degrees, we work towards the goal, we get there, and either you're on your way there or maybe you are there and it may not be quite right. I mean, the business concept of sunk cost, which is you've put that time in, you've put that whatever resource it is, in this case time, maybe money for school, and you think you have to keep going. And the reality is you're not going to get that time back. So
Right,
just look forward and do what's right. You do you. You do what's right for you. Don't worry about we only have one life. And while we're doing all of these things and striving for the goal, we're living our lives. And so, I
right.
mean, my stand is everyone deserves to be excited and fulfilled by their work. So,
Yeah, that's why I say you don't deserve to stay stuck where you don't belong.
oh,
Yeah.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. One other interesting thing is when we have a goal in mind, in some ways it can be a little limiting as well. I
Yeah.
have a number of clients who have achieved more than they ever dreamed they would achieve. And that's an interesting psychology, and that's an interesting challenge to work with, if you will. But that's something to keep in mind too. Is sometimes the original goal may not just not be right, but maybe we could do even more.
Oh boy, that opens up a whole conversation around possibilities and not limiting ourselves to some, especially if it's someone else's idea of what who you are and who you should be and who you should become and how you should go about doing that. Uh, but opening yourself up to the possibilities that there's more than one way to. I'm a cat lover, so I get away with this. There's more than one way to skin a cat. There is more than one possibility. There's more than one solution every time. Every time.
Yeah,
It just depends on your perspective. It depends on
absolutely.
how you look at it.
Absolutely. And I really encourage people, like, there are more possibilities than you could pursue. There's more possibilities than any one of us can imagine.
Yeah.
So talk about it. Get some help. Get some sounding boards,
Yeah.
because that will enable you to see things you can't see on your own.
Yeah, that's so true. So often, I know I've fallen into this camp. I'm so close to something, sometimes I can't see what's really possible. I get stuck. So when that happens, talking to someone else, I've had I have several mentors and I've had a coach, more than one coach over the years. And I always use them as my sounding board and as to get good sound mentoring and advice and coaching, because sometimes I just find myself way too close
Yeah.
to whatever's going on that I can't see around, and I can't see through, and I can't crawl under, and getting over it feels like overwhelming, and
Yeah,
I just need somebody to help me
exactly.
just pull it apart.
Yeah, I could not agree with you more. And it's interesting because I used to hesitate when I would do these kinds of talks. I would hold back on talking about the value of coaching because it felt self-serving in a way. And then what I realized was I am about helping other people. And if I don't talk about what you can get from coaching, I'm not helping people. And I
Well,
know,
yeah, that's so true.
yeah, I mean, I know I have my own coach. I always
Yeah,
have
yeah,
because I deserve it and my business deserves it. And the things that can unlock you mentioned mentors and colleagues and things, and that's tremendous. I mean,
yeah.
hopefully we all have a board of directors, so you have different people in different ways. The beauty of working with a coach is we have no agenda. We don't care which I've got no vested interest in which choice a client makes as long as it's the best choice for them. Where
Right.
sometimes even a mentor, and I've had some fantastic ones in my career, they may have a little bit of an agenda. Like when I mentored
Mhm.
people, I might get to know them and think, I'm really impressed with them. I want them in my organization. So, can I say that the advice I gave them was entirely pure? I mean, it may have been in their best interest, but I had my own interest. A coach doesn't.
But still, I mean, you're offering options, right?
Exactly.
So it's always their choice.
Yeah. Oh,
Whether,
absolutely.
so you're guiding them. That's your job as a mentor, right?
Yeah.
You're sharing with them what they're asking your advice, and you're sharing what you think might work well for them. It's their choice what they do with that information,
Yeah.
right? So I I think I wouldn't call it self-serving, but I I get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I,
Uh,
I think what it comes back to is none of us has all the answers.
Mm-mm.
And there are people around that would be happy to help, to talk things through, to see other
Yeah.
possibilities. So I always encourage that.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's an important piece of advice. All right, so I would love to hear and for you to share the steps you guide your clients through to address this challenge that we've been talking about today.
Yeah. So, you know, like many coaches, I have a bag of tricks, if you will, and I put them together in different ways based on the situation and the individual. And I love that. But I think what it comes down to for many people is almost them giving themselves permission to look within and do some exploration around what are their values at this point in their life, because while our core values don't often change, the things they sort of dial up and down in importance. So it's good to get in touch with that and work with someone to help you see that. um, Along the same lines, what are your priorities at this point in your life? And what are your motivators? Because that may really change. What are the reasons that you're doing what you're doing? What is that bigger need that you have? Sometimes it's as basic as I need the income. That's important. Sometimes it's something other than that. So to really take a step back and look at who you are at this point in your life. And for a lot of my clients, they almost don't give themselves permission to put themselves on their list. They're always thinking about everyone else. If it's their family, if it's their employees, other stakeholders. And, we hear it a lot, but the analogy of if you're on the airplane and put your own oxygen mask on first, at some point, if you're depleted, you're not helping anybody else. So I think that's a lot of where it starts is this self exploration. And then what it often will go to is identifying what's the ideal scenario for them or what's their ideal leadership persona. There's a lot of different ways it can go depending on where the gaps are and where they want to go. the work that I do with someone who's closer to retirement and maybe trying to figure out how to wind their career down and serve their legacy. That work looks a little bit different than someone who's earlier in their career and feels that they have more things to accomplish, although they may be thinking about their legacy too.
Yeah, I don't think it's ever too early to think about that. So I love what you said, that it is, again, this is a similarity to the way we work. Um, it's highly customizable, and it is so dependent on the individual situation, how we go at it from a career coaching standpoint. So, but where you start, it's so important to realize that if you don't start figuring out who are you now, that things have changed, that things have shifted in your head, they've shifted in your heart, the situation has changed, something that's beyond your control has shifted, changed, caused a change for you. If you don't figure out where you are now, and that's that deep inner work you were talking about as the first step, if you don't start there, you're putting the cart before the horse. I have a lot of clients, probably you do too, who come to me and say, I need help with my resume. I need help with my LinkedIn profile. I need help in looking for, how to do research and do all of the stuff to go find a new job. And if they just start there and they don't do the why work, right? What is it I want now? Who am I now that things have changed? Then it's doing it backwards, I think.
Yeah, it's such a good point that you make, because one of the things is, if you're in a job, I mean, we've been talking a lot about a transition, but I also have a lot of clients that come to me thinking, should they make a transition?
Hmm.
And they're not really sure what's going on. And in fact, I've developed a what I call a career satisfaction assessment that looks at the 8 pillars that I've seen as themes in my clients of what may be going on. And so you can dig into those things, because, to your point, if you don't know what the problem is, you don't know if you're solving for the right thing. And if you don't solve for the right thing, like wherever you go, you're going to take yourself with you.
That's so true.
So it's worth the work.
Yeah, it's worth
And
the work.
yeah,
Absolutely. And I love what you just said. If you don't know what the problem is, you don't know what to solve for, right?
exactly.
And digging into that, it is really worth the work. Absolutely. All right. Well, you and I could chat about this for a very long time. I want to get to your tips, Randy. We end
Sure.
every one of these episodes with my guest sharing practical trip tips and strategies. And it's why I call the show Tips for the Transition. So, what tips do you have for our listeners who may relate to this conversation we're having?
Yeah. I mean, in particular, tips for folks who have achieved their goal, achieved a goal, and maybe, I guess it fits too for people who are in a role for a while and maybe it's not fitting right anymore. But thinking in particular about the getting the goal. So, a pre tip, I'm going to slip a fourth in. A pre tip is, rather than just focus on getting to the goal, do some exploration about what it will be like to be there. What are the things that you will want to focus on? What are the areas that you're going to want to master? What are the things you're going to want to be doing to set yourself up for the next thing? So it's imagining yourself there, not just getting there. So that's my pre tip. Now for the 3 tips. One is, when you get to the goal, if you are a goal motivated person, set the next goal. And it may be a phase goal. It may be the first 6 months, year, whatever the timeline is. My goal is to master this. And what will work for a lot of people who are goal oriented is, okay, a year from now, drop in your calendar, start setting the next goal. So you kind of know what's coming. You give yourself permission to not be focused on it for a while, but it's still there. That awareness is still there. So that's the first one.
I love that. That's so important to be always thinking ahead. But your pre-tip is really powerful. Imagining that you're there. Imagining, creating your vision for what it looks like when you've reached your goal. So that in itself is great motivation.
And I think it goes even deeper too, because one of the conversations I often will have with my clients is, okay, if you see yourself in this job in a year, 2 years, what does Randi today? No, what does Randi in 2 years need Randi today to be doing to get there? And so it's almost like a behavior analogy to the dress for the next job, which we used to say when we went into the office. It's behave as though you're already in that job. And I think that can help you
Yeah,
anticipate it too.
that's
And
a
it'll
great
help you
point.
get it.
Yeah, it's a great point,
Yeah,
right? Show up the way you want to be seen and heard.
exactly. Exactly.
Absolutely. What's your second tip?
My second tip is give yourself permission to be wherever you are, because this is achieving that big goal and adapting to a new level of responsibility. It's a roller coaster. And there's going to be sometimes when you're way up high, and sometimes you're at every phase of that roller coaster. And it's okay to be wherever you are. There's going to be moments you may feel lost. There are people to help you. There are moments when you feel thrilled and proud of yourself. That's awesome. Enjoy it. But wherever you are, it's okay to be there. And one other thing that actually is important to give yourself permission to be is give yourself permission to be imperfect. Because if you're seeking for perfect, you will never move forward. It's really okay to get things mostly right and then tweak them as you go along. I think sometimes seeking perfection can really hold us back.
Oh boy, you're talking to a recovering perfectionist here. Do I know that? So here's my I'm going to just throw this one in. Instead of seeking perfection, seek excellence.
I like that.
That's just an easier way for me. It works because it's an easier way for me to think about it and to catch myself from the procrastination that can help when you're pursuing perfection because it's never quite right. But if you pursue excellence, you do your very best. And at that point, you say, that's good. That's good.
That's great. I'm going to borrow that from you.
Yeah. Oh, you're welcome to it.
I
Yeah.
like it a lot.
Yeah. All right. What's number 3?
Number 3 is something that we talked about before, which is get support. It takes a village to do something really big. And if you look around, there are people that want to help you. And if you feel like there are times when I have needed support and I almost felt like asking for it was kind of self serving. But when you put it in the larger context, none of us achieves big things on our own. And you have the opportunity to pay it forward. You have the opportunity to help others in the same way that you were helped. And that's just it's just good in every single way. It feels good, it's helpful, it puts good energy out there. It's good corporate karma, however you want to say it. But get support, embrace the support, allow yourself to take it, and then pay it forward.
Yeah. It's foundational, I think, to create this when you're going through stuff, having that. I heard you refer to the board of directors. I call this my personal board of directors. If you're the CEO of your life, every CEO needs a board. And putting people in place whom you trust, who will tell you the truth, who will listen, who will advise, whatever it is you need at any particular time. Have people, more than one, have people in your life who can serve that purpose that you can go to whenever you need. Even if you're just feeling like, I'm not quite sure what to do next. I'm not sure I'm on the right path. I'm not sure this is the right next thing to do. Those are the questions that people can help you, be a sounding board for you, because very often all you need to do is hear yourself say the words, speak out loud, and
Yeah.
the solutions come.
Yeah, it's so true. And look, you and I have both reinvented ourselves. We're now in
Oh,
second successful careers, but
oh,
even
multiple
less,
times for me.
okay, even less, significant shifts or whatever require that kind of help. I
Yeah,
completely agree with you. And
yeah,
it's funny because sometimes clients will come to me and there are times when we're doing big transformative things, and there are times when just talking it through unlock something for them, and I almost feel like I'm cheating, like all we did was talk, but it makes a difference.
yeah. That's all it needs. It's all it takes sometimes. It's just having someone who is a great listener, has some experience that might be helpful, and can help guide and just listening is so important. Just being heard. Yeah, we could chat about this for a long time. We have to wrap it up. I'm so sorry about that,
No,
but we
absolutely.
do.
It's been a lovely conversation. I really enjoyed it. I look forward to continuing it offline with you.
Yeah, we will stay connected, that's for sure. So, Randy, I want to thank you so much for sharing your story and your brilliance. I think you've just had some very powerful things to share with us, and your tips at the end were great. I'm sure that there will be people who will want to reach out to you. So, what is the one best way for them to do that?
Yeah, sort of my catch-all is through my website, which is corlinrobertscoaching.com, Corlin robertscoaching.com. If you go to the Fulfilling Career Happy Life page, you can get that career satisfaction assessment that I mentioned, or you can contact me directly.
That's fabulous. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. And all of the links for Randy will be in the show notes, so you'll get that you can get that assessment there as well. Randy, thanks again. I really appreciate your being here.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
It is my honor. And thank you all for joining us. I appreciate that you're a part of this community, that you listen to these resources on a regular basis. And if you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a comment. Tell us what resonated most for you. And as I said at the top of the show, I love creating and sharing resources for professional women who feel stuck in their careers. So if something has you stuck right now, let's just get a fresh perspective for you. Reach out and let's chat about it. There's a link for my private Facebook group called the Career Transition Roadmap in the links below. All of the links, as I said, to reach out for Randy are also below. So don't do this alone. And let's meet again here every Wednesday because I believe it's our time to thrive. And I think we should do it together. Till next time, I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan, helping you turn transition into triumph.